I returned home for my father's funeral, and in the quiet hum of the car on the way back, my sister murmured, "They sold your car." I didn't look at her. I didn't ask who. I didn't ask when. I just watched the bare trees pass by outside the window, as if her words were just part of the cold wind smearing the glass. It was a black 2008 Honda Accord. Nothing special. The back bumper was scuffed from a parking garage, the AC only worked when the car was in motion, and the stereo had a permanent crackle at volume level 5. But I had replaced the brake pads myself. I'd sat in that driver's seat in hospital parking lots, in quiet drive-thrus, on nights I couldn't sleep. That car was mine. And now, it was gone. "I thought you knew," Emma added, more to the window than to me. I didn't answer. I didn't flinch. I just breathed, slow and deep. The scent of old leather and winter air filled the silence between us. 3 months ago, when I flew back to Georgia after the divorce, I had one suitcase, a severance check, and the key to that car. Mom had offered the guest room with the usual caveats. Just until you get back on your feet. I knew better than to ask for more. I was 34, unemployed, divorced, and broke. I paid for my own groceries. I picked up weekend shifts at a coffee shop in town and used the car every day to get there, rain or shine. I parked around the block so Mom wouldn't complain about oil stains in the driveway. I bought the parts. I paid for the gas. I changed the damn oil on a tarp behind the house while my younger brother Nathan played video games inside. That car wasn't a luxury, it was my spine. When Dad got sick last month, I started using it less. I stayed home more, helping with appointments, sorting through paperwork, making dinner when no one else could be bothered. The last time I drove it was to pick up a prescription. I remember locking the door, slipping the key into the drawer where we always kept spare batteries and rubber bands. I never saw it again. After the funeral, back at the house, everything was soft and polite. Ham sandwiches and lukewarm sweet tea. Neighbors whispered condolences and balanced paper plates on their laps. Emma stood near the window, swirling a half-empty glass of Diet Coke. Nathan was in the backyard smoking. Mom was wiping down the kitchen counter that was already clean. No one mentioned the car. That night, I waited until the house had quieted. Then I went to the drawer. The key was gone. I opened the garage just to be sure. Empty. Only the outline on the dusty floor betrayed its absence. No note, no mention. Just erased. I checked the mailbox. No title change, no DMV notice, nothing. I didn't ask. I didn't accuse. I went to bed. At 2:17 a.m., I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the pale shadow of the ceiling fan barely moving in the dark. I remembered the morning I bought that car. 6 years ago. It was all I could afford after my first job layoff. I paid cash. I drove it across 5 states for work. I slept in it once during a snowstorm when my card declined at a motel. I kept a box of quarters in the glove compartment for laundromats. My ex once called it a tin can. I called it home. And now my family had taken it. Quietly, deliberately. And no one had the spine to tell me. I don't know what hurt more, the theft or the silence around it. I didn't cry. I didn't throw things. I just listened to the heater click off and thought, this is how it starts. Not with a scream, but with a whisper in a car and a missing key. The next morning, Emma avoided eye contact. Nathan wasn't home. Mom acted like nothing happened as she poured herself the same half cup of black coffee she'd been drinking every morning since 1992. "Do you want eggs?" she asked. I shook my head. I walked past her, stepped onto the porch, and sat on the swing alone. The sun was barely rising, but I could already feel the slow fire starting beneath my ribs. Not rage, just clarity. Something was shifting. Something that couldn't be undone. And it all started with 5 words. They sold your car. The second day after the funeral, I found the receipts. They weren't hidden. Just left on the dining table in a white envelope with Mom's handwriting, to file. Inside, wedged between utility bills and a grocery list, was a pink carbon copy from Sam's Auto Sales, $2, $300 cash, vehicle listed as 2008 Honda Accord. My name wasn't anywhere on the document. Seller listed. Nathan Reese. Buyer. Some guy named Roy with a phone number scrawled in blue ink. I stared at it for a long time, long enough for the coffee in my hand to go cold. Nathan had sold it. My little brother. The one who'd never paid rent, who had wrecked 2 cars of his own, who once said, "You and that old junker match made in heaven. That's who sold my car." I didn't confront him. Not yet. I folded the paper slowly and slid it into my coat pocket. That night, I lay on the floor of my childhood bedroom, the mattress having been given to a cousin 2 years ago. There was no closet rod, only empty hangers, and a cracked mirror resting on the ground, like it gave up trying to stay upright. My work apron was folded neatly in my backpack. My boots were still caked in dried salt from the last snow. I thought about all the mornings I got up quietly before sunrise, tiptoed out so as not to wake anyone, drove the car into town, stood behind a counter for 8 hours smiling at people who didn't care if I slept the night before. I paid for my own tires. I changed the windshield wipers last fall. No one offered to help, and I never asked. Because that was the deal, right? You stay in their house, you don't become a burden, you take care of your things, you don't make noise. You don't act like it's really your home. And they just continue with their lives, as if you're a temporary inconvenience they're generously tolerating. That was always the unspoken rule. Even when I was 13 and Nathan broke my Walkman and Mom said he didn't mean to, like that was enough. Even when I was 17 and Emma got to take the car to prom while I stayed home because she was younger and deserved something nice. Even when I got into college and Dad said, "That's cute, but we can't help with out-of-state tuition," and handed me a list of local jobs instead. I made it through community college working 2 part-time gigs. When I finally saved up enough to move out, they didn't throw a party. They just reminded me to change my mailing address. I was the invisible one, the background, the bridge between Emma's dramas and Nathan's implosions. And even when I came back, broken and starting over, I did it quietly. I never once asked them for a single thing beyond that room. I bought my own detergent. I fixed the sink when it leaked. I even shoveled the damn driveway every snowstorm because I knew no one else would. That car, my car, was the one thing that made me feel like I still had a life of my own. It didn't matter if it was old. It didn't matter if Nathan called it a coffin on wheels. It got me out. It got me back. It got me moving. And now it was gone. Sold. Not by accident. Not under duress. Cashed out. Silently. When I finally asked Emma about it, just her, just gently, she said, "Nathan thought it was part of Dad's assets. I guess Mom agreed." I blinked. "It was never his," I said. They knew that. Emma didn't argue. She didn't deny it. She just said, "Things were hard. Hospital bills, and Mom said Dad had mentioned the car once, about selling it if things got worse. Maybe they thought." "They didn't think," I said. "They decided." And that was it. She didn't push. She didn't apologize. She just looked down at her chipped nail polish like it might give her a better answer. I walked outside into the slush, my boots sinking slightly with each step. The sky was low and gray, pressing down like a weight. I didn't know where to go. I just walked, past the mailbox, past the driveway where the oil stains still outlined the shape of my car, and then further, down the street, where the wind hit sharper and the silence got thicker. I thought about every mile I'd driven in that car. Every job interview, every bad date, every early morning I sat in it and just breathed before walking into the day. I thought about the fact that Nathan had probably pocketed the cash, that Mom had probably co-signed the title without a second thought. I thought about how easily they erased me. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel tired. I felt something solid, something cold and unmistakable, like steel snapping into place. They hadn't just sold my car. They had signed away their last excuse, and they didn't even know it yet. The following Monday, I took the day off from the cafe. I didn't call in sick, I just didn't show up. I sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, coffee going cold beside me, and I started searching DMV, county records, resale databases. 37 minutes later, I found it. My car. Listed on a third-party used car site. Same dents, same plates, blurred, price, $3,400, which meant Nathan had undersold it or lied. Either way, the chain was traceable. The last registered owner was still me. The title transfer had been filed a week before Dad died when I was still taking care of his medication schedule, picking up groceries, too tired to think. I remembered that week. Nathan had asked me to pick up his dry cleaning because he couldn't leave Mom alone too long. I had said yes. While I was out running his errand, he was signing a forged document with my name. I clicked on the PDF. It was a scanned signature, shaky and wrong. The R curled like a hook. I never write my R's like that, but they had. They used my last known address, my social, the car's VIN, and in the bottom right corner, listed under witness, Deborah Reese, my mother. I closed the laptop slowly, like it might bite. Then I stood, walked to the hall closet, and pulled out the folder I kept buried behind spare linens. Inside, receipts, service records, the original title, insurance cards, a screenshot of the last gas refill, a photo of the odometer, everything dated, stamped. They thought I wouldn't keep records. They thought I wouldn't notice, but I always notice. That night, after Mom went to bed, and Nathan disappeared to see a friend, I slipped into the living room and opened the drawer where she kept old paperwork. Tax forms, expired coupons. A flashlight with no batteries, and under it all, a file labeled Dad's Estate. Inside were handwritten lists, accounts, passwords, final expenses. And at the back, folded and creased, a note. Sell car if needed. No name, no make, no VIN, just car. I held the paper up to the lamp. Dad didn't write that. He hadn't held a pen in months. His tremor was so bad he couldn't even sign checks by October. I knew because I signed them for him. Quietly, carefully, legally. I recognized this handwriting. It was Mom's. I didn't take the file. I didn't scream. I just went back to my room, emailed myself a copy of the DMV transfer, and then searched for the number on the buyer's receipt. I called. Hello? The voice was male, gravelly, casual. Hi, I said. I'm calling about the Accord you bought last week. I believe there may have been an issue with the title. A pause. Who is this? My name's Grace. The car was mine. I never authorized the sale. Another pause. Look, he said, I bought that car fair and square. Got the papers. Got the keys. Dude who sold it said it was clean. Did you notice the seller wasn't the name on the title? Silence. Then, he said it was for his sister, helping her out. I didn't think. I'm not blaming you, I said. But I need you to confirm, did he give you my license? No, he admitted. Just the title and a signed affidavit. Looked official. It wasn't, I thanked him. Then I called a lawyer. Not a firm. Just a name I'd kept in my phone since the divorce. A referral from a friend. She picked up on the second ring. I explained, briefly, clearly. Forged signature. Unauthorized transfer. A witness with a conflict of interest. Property stolen while I was actively living in the same household. It's winnable, she said. Do you want civil or criminal? I want them to know, I said, and I want it to cost them. We'll start with a demand letter, she said. Then we move forward. I sent her everything. Within the hour, she had drafted a 2-page letter, concise and sharp. By Wednesday, it was in their mailbox. By Thursday, the house felt different. Mom was quiet. Nathan didn't come home. Emma stopped by with pastries, trying to act like nothing had shifted. You okay? She asked. I nodded. She placed the bag on the counter. You know how Mom gets. She panics. Maybe she thought it would help. I didn't answer. Emma sighed. She's not a monster. No, I said, she's worse. She thinks she's the victim. That night, Mom knocked on my door for the first time in months. She didn't enter. Just said, You're really going to drag this through court? I didn't reply. She lingered. After everything we've been through? I opened the door, looked her in the eyes, and said, Exactly because of everything we've been through. Then I closed it again and locked it. For the first time in years, I slept without checking my bank account, without worrying if something else would disappear. They had crossed a line. And now they were going to see what it felt like to lose something that couldn't be replaced. The letter had been received. I knew it because the house fell into a kind of choreographed chaos. The front door slammed harder. The drawers opened louder. And silence became thick, weaponized. Then came the calls. Not to me. To Emma. To my old boss at the cafe. To Aunt Clara 2 towns over. I didn't respond. The day after the letter arrived, Mom left a voicemail. Just one. Grace, we need to talk. You don't understand what you're doing. This is tearing the family apart. No apology, no denial. Just that familiar tone, tired, injured, noble. The tone she used when the power got cut off because she forgot to pay the bill and blamed the electric company for changing systems. The next message came from Nathan. A text. Seriously? Over that junker? You're dragging your own family through legal hell over a car no one even liked? I didn't answer. He followed it up 20 minutes later. You're a real piece of work, you know that? Dad would be ashamed. That one almost worked. But then I remembered the forged signature. I remembered my mother's handwriting. And I remembered the oil stains. So I blocked him. That weekend, they tried a different tactic. Emma came by with bags of groceries. Mom said you probably didn't have time to shop, she offered. She's worried. Everyone's worried. I looked at the bags. Organic kale, bottled spring water, sourdough bread, nothing I would ever buy. This is guilt food, I said. Tell her next time to bring receipts. Emma set the bags down anyway. Grace, you don't have to do this. We can fix it. Just don't escalate. I almost laughed. I didn't escalate. They did. When they sold what wasn't theirs. She didn't argue. She never did. She just left. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. It was just a car. Is your pride really worth this much damage? I deleted it without reading it twice. 2 days later, a card arrived in the mail. Plain, no return address. Inside was a single sentence, written in my mother's sharp cursive. When you lose family, don't say we didn't try. No signature, just pressure, just performance. Like always. I didn't respond. I didn't call. I didn't ask why Nathan hadn't come home in days, or why Mom had started chain smoking on the porch again. I let it all burn without touching the match. At night, I read through my legal file. My lawyer had everything. Digital timestamps, notarized history, proof of residence. The affidavit they'd forged would collapse in court like wet paper. I wasn't hoping for an apology anymore. I just wanted accountability. That was the word that echoed in my chest every time I passed the empty spot in the driveway. Accountability. On Friday, I stopped by the old garage where I used to park the car during snow season. The man who ran it, Luis, recognized me. Haven't seen you in a while, he said. How's the Accord holding up? I smiled without smiling. It's not, it was stolen. He blinked. Seriously? By my brother, I said. He didn't ask more. He just nodded slowly and said, People always think they're entitled to what you built when you build it quietly. I sat in my car borrowed, temporary, unfamiliar, and thought about how many years I had been building quietly. Not just the car, but everything. The jobs, the life, the independence. Even the return home had been on quiet terms. But silence wasn't kindness. Silence had been complicity. And now, my refusal to stay silent was treated like betrayal, as if I had broken something precious, instead of finally acknowledging it was already broken. That weekend, Mom threw a dinner. A peace offering, according to Emma. Just come, she said. It's not a trap. I went. I brought my own fork. At the table, the air was thick with strained smiles. Nathan was there, his eyes avoiding mine. Mom wore lipstick. She only did that for holidays and manipulation. No one mentioned the car. No one mentioned the letter. They talked about weather, Emma's new yoga class, a neighbor's son getting engaged. I sat, I chewed, I nodded. When dessert came, a peach cobbler too sweet to swallow, Mom finally leaned in. I miss when we were all close, she said. Her eyes watered on cue. Before lawyers, before threats. I looked at her calmly. You miss when I was silent, I said. She didn't deny it, just reached for her wine. No one spoke for a long while, and I didn't stay for coffee. On the way out, Nathan muttered, You really don't care what this is doing to us, do you? I paused at the door. No, I said. I care that it took this much for you to notice I was even here. Then I left. The groceries Emma brought were still on the counter when I got home. I threw them all away. The court date was set for a Thursday morning. Nothing dramatic, no screaming match, no cameras, just a quiet local hearing in a beige room that smelled like coffee and old paper. I wore black slacks and a navy blouse, hair pulled back, nothing flashy, nothing soft. Nathan didn't show. Mom came alone, holding a purse that had been stitched so many times, it looked like a map of her decisions. She didn't look at me when I walked in. My lawyer sat beside me, calm and precise. Her pen didn't stop moving the entire time. The judge asked basic questions. The evidence was clear. Ownership, signature discrepancies, timeline, residency, every detail lined up. My lawyer presented it like an X-ray. No emotion, just fact. When it was Mom's turn to speak, she didn't argue the documents. She didn't deny the forged signature. She just said, "We thought she'd understand. It was her father's final weeks. The family needed help." The judge nodded politely, then looked at me. "Do you have anything to add?" I stood. My heart didn't pound, my voice didn't shake. It wasn't the car, I said. It was the lie and the silence. And the fact that the only time my name meant anything to them was when they needed it to disappear. No one said a word, not even Mom. The decision came in under 10 minutes. Title transfer invalid. Damages to be calculated. The car wasn't recoverable. It had already been resold twice, but financial restitution was ordered. And a note was added to the court record. Suspected fraudulent notarization to be forwarded to the DA's office. I thanked the judge. I walked out alone. Mom didn't follow. That night, the front porch light was off when I came home. Nathan's car was gone. Mom's bedroom door stayed shut. I packed quietly. One suitcase, one small box of records, the laptop. A framed photo of me and Dad from a decade ago, one of the few times we'd gone hiking, just the two of us. He wasn't perfect, but he listened, or at least tried to. I left the spare key on the kitchen table. The house didn't feel like mine anymore. Maybe it never had. The next morning, I moved into a small rental across town. Furnished, modest, but clean, and mine. I set up my clothes in the closet, bought a plant, started each day with coffee on the porch and silence that didn't feel like judgment. 2 days later, a letter came. No return address. But I recognized the handwriting. Inside, a folded note. "You've hurt this family more than you know. I hope you're proud. No apology, no ownership. Just another attempt to assign me the role I was never meant to play. The ungrateful daughter, the villain." I folded it back, placed it in a drawer, and didn't answer. Emma texted a few times that week. Updates about Mom, Nathan, how things were weird now. I replied once, "They were always weird, now it's just honest." She stopped texting after that. One evening I found myself driving past the old street. Not to visit, just to see. The porch light was still off, the driveway empty. For a brief moment I wondered if they missed me. Then I realized they probably missed what I did, what I paid, what I absorbed. But me? Number? They never knew me. Only what I gave. And now that I'd stopped giving, they didn't know what to do with the silence. I did. I let it breathe. A week after the hearing, I got a call. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something in me said, "Do it." Grace? It was Nathan. His voice was low, measured, not angry, not soft either. "I just wanted to say, I get it now." I said nothing. "It wasn't right. What we did, what I did." Still, I waited. "I don't expect anything. He stopped. "I just wanted to say it." "Okay," I said. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't ask to fix anything. Maybe that was the closest to truth he'd ever come. After we hung up, I sat on the floor, back against the couch, letting the stillness wrap around me like a coat I hadn't worn in years. I thought about the car, about the years, about how long I had stayed quiet, and how different everything sounded now that I'd stopped. Then I stood up. And for the first time in a very long time, I didn't feel like I owed anyone an explanation. It started unraveling slowly, not with a phone call or a headline, but in small, quiet breakdowns that made their way to me like whispers in a storm. First came the pharmacy call, the one Mom used for her blood pressure medication. They had my number on file from when I used to refill it for her. "Hi, just checking," the voice said. "Miss Reese hasn't picked up her refill in over 2 weeks. Is everything okay?" I paused. "I wouldn't know," I said. "I don't live there anymore." A beat of silence. Then, "Right. Sorry to bother." Click. Then the utility bill notices started coming forwarded by mistake to my new address because my name was still listed as emergency contact on half their accounts. The water bill, internet, gas, each marked overdue. Then came the real crack. Emma called breathless at 7:12 on a Thursday morning. "Mom's freaking out," she said. The bank froze one of her accounts. "They're saying something about questionable authorizations and an open fraud review. Did you do something?" I sipped my coffee. "No," I said, but I stopped covering for the things she did. Emma went quiet, then, "She's talking about selling the house." I didn't say anything, not because I didn't care, but because it had never really been a home. And now, with the storm finally hitting, they were looking for sandbags they'd already burned. Nathan texted next. This time not angry, just confused. They didn't think it would go this far, he wrote. Mom saying she might lose everything. I read it once, twice, then deleted it. The everything she was talking about? That was built on the assumption I would never walk away, that I would always, quietly, come back. But the structure was hollow, and now the weight was finally too much for them. I heard through the grapevine that Mom tried to borrow money from Aunt Clara, that she offered to co-sign a loan with Emma, that she tried to list the house but couldn't because there was a lien tied to the court decision. That last part? My lawyer handled it. It wasn't revenge, it was protection. A legal move to prevent further damage while the judgment processed. But to Mom, it was betrayal. She started leaving voicemails again. 3 in a single day. I don't know what you want from us. We're family. You can't just shut the door forever. You're ruining us. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't feel anything, but because I had already said everything that needed to be said. The day I stood in court and called it what it was, theft. A week later, I ran into Luis again, the guy from the garage. He asked if things had settled. I told him the truth. They're unraveling. He nodded. People don't realize how much was being held up by the quiet ones. I smiled. Not because it was funny, because it was true. At night, I would sometimes sit on the floor of my new place, lights dimmed, and scroll through old emails, appointments I scheduled, payments I sent, things I fixed without thanks. I wasn't nostalgic. I was reminding myself that the collapse I was now witnessing wasn't sudden. It had always been cracking. I had just stopped patching the holes. Then came the letter. Thick envelope. Legal stationery. My name spelled right. Inside. A formal request from Mom's attorney. She wanted to appeal the lien. Claimed it was unfair. Excessive. Said it was endangering her stability. I handed it to my lawyer without a word. She read it, set it down, and said, "We'll respond by deadline, but no, she doesn't have a case." I nodded. I didn't ask for anything else. The next week, I walked past the courthouse and saw her sitting on a bench, alone. No makeup, no performance. Just a woman holding a thick file in her lap and staring out at the street like she didn't know how to cross it. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and pretended not to. Either way, I kept walking. That night, Nathan called again. This time, he sounded tired. "She's not eating much," he said. "She says she's scared. Says you're making her into the villain." "She made herself into that," I said. "I just stopped pretending otherwise." He didn't argue, just sighed. "She wants to talk to you." "No," I said. "She wants to undo the consequences, not the choices." Silence stretched between us like thread about to snap. Then he whispered, "She said she misses you." "Tell her," I said. Missing me was something she should have tried before she signed my name. Then I hung up. I didn't cry. I didn't celebrate. I just stared at the quiet, soft space I had carved out for myself. And for once, it felt like enough. I made coffee slowly that morning. No rush. The sunlight was clean through the window, soft against the chipped ceramic tiles. For the first time in a long time, I didn't check my bank balance while the water boiled. I didn't brace myself for an email or a voicemail or a knock. I just stood barefoot on the cool linoleum, grounded in the quiet. The apartment was still small. A one-bedroom walk-up with old pipes and a temperamental heater. But it was mine. Fully paid. No shared utility bills. No reminders taped to the fridge. No tense family dinners dressed up as civility. I changed the bedsheets the night before forest green, thick cotton, soft like moss. I hadn't asked anyone what color to buy. I hadn't texted anyone for approval. I just saw them in the store and thought, yes, this. And that was enough. Later that day, I sorted through a stack of mail, mostly junk, a few bills, and one heavy envelope, cream-colored, high-quality paper, no return address. Just my name, handwritten in sharp practice letters. Inside was an invitation. Emma's handwriting this time. Wedding. September. A vineyard 3 hours south. No note, no explanation. Just my name printed on the card, like it belonged there. I looked at it for a long time, not because I was deciding, but because I wanted to give the silence the respect it deserved. Then I slid it back into the envelope and let it sit on the kitchen counter for 2 full days. On the 3rd day, I dropped it in the trash. Not out of anger, not even out of sadness, but because I finally understood that being included doesn't always mean being wanted. Sometimes it just means being tolerated again for show. And I was done being anyone's backdrop. I lit a candle that evening, not for grief, not for ceremony, just for the smell, cedar and fig, a scent I had chosen for myself. The flame flickered against the windowsill, steady but small, a reminder of what quiet could look like when it wasn't weaponized. Weeks passed. The lean stayed in place. I didn't hear from Mom. Not a call, not a letter. Just stories through other people, Emma, mostly telling me how she was managing, or not managing, selling old jewelry, canceling subscriptions, hosting fewer dinners. I felt no satisfaction in it. I felt no guilt either. It wasn't about punishment anymore. It was about a line being drawn, finally, after years of pretending the bruises were just misunderstandings. One afternoon, I drove out of town, not far, just enough to feel the road again. The wind through cracked windows. I didn't have my old car. That was long gone, but the rental was clean, solid, and quiet. I turned on the radio something low and wordless, and let it fill the space. Miles passed. The world felt open again. I didn't miss the past. I missed who I used to be in it. The girl who folded towels, just right so no one would call her sloppy. The woman who kept every receipt, every text, just in case she needed to prove her worth. But I wasn't her anymore. Somewhere along the way, I stopped apologizing for existing. I pulled into a rest stop and sat on the hood of the car. The air was sharp. A few birds passed overhead, and somewhere in the trees something rustled. I closed my eyes and breathed in, not waiting for a message, not preparing for a fight. Just being. A few days later, another letter came. This one, in a plain envelope. Inside was a note in my mother's handwriting. Short, crooked, less practiced than usual. If I could do it over, I would have asked you first. I didn't know you'd leave for real. I thought you always came back. I folded it once, then again, then slid it into a drawer without answering. It wasn't an apology. It was an observation. A passive confession that barely touched the surface. And still it was more than I ever expected. The next morning, I bought a new journal. Hardback. Cream pages. A place for things I no longer needed to prove, only to remember. I wrote down one sentence. They thought I would come back, but I didn't leave out of pride. I left because no one ever noticed I was there. And then I closed the cover. No dramatic ending. No final confrontation. Just the end of a performance I had been forced to play since childhood. People like my mother build empires out of silence, out of guilt, out of carefully curated versions of truth. And for years, I was one of the bricks, until I stopped answering. Until I learned that sometimes walking away isn't the act of betrayal, it's the only honest thing left to do. I still get quiet some nights. When the wind hits the window just right, or when I hear a song I used to play on those long drives in my old car. And sometimes, I think about that version of me. The one who would have responded to the wedding invite. The one who would have brought a gift, made small talk, smiled through it. But I don't miss her. I just thank her for surviving long enough to become me. And when the silence returns, I don't fight it. I let it in. Because now, it's mine. It no longer asks me to explain myself. It no longer echoes with shame. It just exists, like I do. They thought I was lost, but I was never theirs to lose.